They don't have an animation program anymore. Or maybe they do, but they stopped at some point. And then I did my honors in Joburg. And while I was doing my honors, I was an intern with the NFVF, and I also went overseas to study for a little bit. And I was finding that I couldn't find work. That's why I did my honors. I couldn't find work. Nobody was hiring interns. Nobody was hiring junior level people. And so that's when I decided to go do my honors, because I was like, okay, if I do my honors, then at least I will be able to go study overseas if I want to study overseas. But don't let me not get lost watching everyone draw. But when I was there doing my honors and struggling to find work, I finished the program and I just couldn't find a job. And then I literally Googled. I was like, how much is it to register a company? And it was like 200 and something rand on the CIPC website. So that's the governing body of South Africa that where people register their companies. It was like 200 and something. So I was like, okay. I was gonna do Cabblow Studios at some point, but I thought it was gonna be a thing where I work somewhere else for like 15 years, gain some experience, and then start Cabblow Studios. But because I couldn't find a job, I was like, I don't want to be a statistic. I'm a graduate, I'm a graduate. Let me not be a statistic. Let me just hire myself. And so I did. And I think the other reason why is because I've always wanted to tell my own stories growing up. We all have our own OCs. It's so nice. I can just use like animation nerd language and everyone will be fine. We all have our own OCs and all our ideas that we want to do and the stories we want to tell. So I was like, well, okay, let's start Cabblow Studios now. And then my mom was like, let's do medical animation. And I was like, yeah, I want to do short films. I want to make movies. But eventually I came around and it ended up being a really good way to break into the industry.
It was actually interesting. I had the impulse the other day to just like, I'm going to register a business. I'm going to make a studio. Literally, it just like popped into my head. So I went onto that website. I think the fee is now around 800 Rand actually.
Wow.
But then I thought, before I do this, I'm going to do some additional Googling into the kinds of businesses you get and what the pros and cons are. So like I was looking at being a, what do you call it? Sole proprietor versus an actual company and what the advantages versus disadvantages are there. Because when you're working as a freelancer, you're basically acting as a sole proprietor, and it actually comes with a lot of risks and higher tax and all of that. So is that something you looked into at all before taking those steps, or is it something you learned afterwards, and has it had any sort of significant effect, do you think?
Well, I remember doing accounting in school, so I don't know at what life stage everybody is in the audience. If some people are professionals or studying or even younger, but I did accounting in school. It was the only way to have my mom allow me to do art. I had to do physics and accounting and pure maths. So I remember learning about closed corporations, and sorry, I'm going to get through it quickly, guys. I remember learning about closed corporations and about sole proprietors and about private companies. And so that knowledge was kind of in the back of my mind already. But when I was registering the company, I didn't really think, oh, what should I be? What should I do? I just thought, let me do a private company. It seemed like the easiest to register. And also on that registration platform, I'd kept the nature of the business broad so that I could do a lot of different things within entertainment and media. And so because I have aspirations to be a Disney, to be a Studio Ghibli, it made sense to start as a private company and eventually get to the point where Cabblow Studios is big that it becomes a public company. But the other reason why I didn't want to be a sole proprietor as well is I like what you're saying about tax. So my mom, being a doctor and everything, the way they would organize her tax, it was so high. She always had to like prepay the tax every month. And so it actually seemed like a lot of stress, to be honest, to be freelance rather than to be a company director. So I just decided to just take the route of starting a company because I have aspirations to be a Disney type. But yeah, my gosh, it's 800 Rand now. Oh my goodness.
No,
sorry guys, I was about to say they're asking you in the questions, is it 800 Rand or 150?
It was 800 Rand. I'll find the website after this and post a link in chat.
I did already. It's
thank you.
CIPC. Kabelo, was it the CIPC.co.za?
Yes, it was CIPC.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we linked it in chat already.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, great. So now that you've like spoken a bit about your you're starting off and getting into things a bit, like what sets you apart from other studios? What is your unique selling point? You know, you've touched on medical animation, but now we're seeing things like Rory-san and the girls coming out, and that's like a very vast departure from what medical animation was. So what is, your defining sort of thing that sets you apart from other studios, do you think?
Oh, good question. What is the thing that sets us apart from other studios? So I would say that having an authentic South African voice is something that we are building with each project that we do, whether it's a medical short film or non, like Rory-san. Rory-san is basically me, guys. I'll explain the story at some point. But she's basically me. But the one thing is like developing an authentic South African voice, which in our case means strong Black female protagonists is one of the features of our stories. So whether it's Dr. T, who's my mom, who has a series called Dr. T's Nuggets on Instagram, who's telling us about how to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, or it's the main characters from my very first short film were my grandmother and my aunt, and they were talking about their experience with diabetes. And we literally use their voice. We turn them into cartoon characters, and Jeannie was one of the animators on that short way back in 2019. So that's one of the features. And Rory-san as well. Rory-san is a high school girl, and she's living a distinct South African experience, going to a private school and dealing with that culture, more than 100 years of tradition, and she's into K-pop, and she's Black, and she doesn't have the strongest command of her native language, but she wants to make Afropop because she also wants to make sure that her country's music becomes as big as K-pop is. So I think one of the things is those strong Black female protagonists, and I think that's what, and my perspective as a South African is what would make those projects distinctly South African. I also think the fact that it's 2D, so the art style that we have is like quite cute. It's like I'm having to describe our art style, but it's like quite cute, but also leaning towards, I wouldn't say realism, but having a like we're starting to dip our toes in depicting our. Is somebody doing Rory-san fan art? That's so cute. Starting to dip our toes in how do we bring our cartoon characters into the real world? Because I love people. People are really interesting and strange, and so I like showing people and their quirks in our stories. So I think that's the one thing is our art style, and it's the authentic South African voice and the Black female characters. And I think something else that also makes us distinct is our way of working at Cabblow Studios. So we're quite fast, And it's mostly out of necessity because the clients we work with don't understand what we do. They come from the medical space. They want their animation yesterday. And then you have to tell them that, no, 12 frames per second, 24 frames per second. On average, we can do like 3 to 5 seconds a day, or 5 to 10 seconds a day, depending on who's on the project. So speed is one of our strengths, and our distinct qualities as a studio. And I think, what else? I think when you're in the studio, when you're working with us, either as a client or you're a team member, the culture of the studio, like it's a place where you grow, and it's a place where we really try to communicate well with our clients and within our team. Like when we're in meetings and I'm giving feedback and you're an intern, I'm not the only idea guy. And so if you have thoughts, please do share them, because there's going to be things that I'm just not going to be able to see, just because our brains all work differently. But yeah, I hope
that's
that
really, really valuable.
Thank you.
Just, giving your interns the input. They've always even my own experience with working with interns, the ideas.
Yes.
When you realize you don't have all the ideas, they are so great as a resource. So I'm really glad to hear you leaning on that strength a lot.
I'm telling you, Jeannie, I wrote the script for Rorisang and the girls that we're doing right now as the webtoon, but the way that she's expressing herself is all our. So Tandeka is our artist who's doing pencils. She's an intern, Tandeka Gina, and she's like, just how extreme Rorisang and how she expresses herself, because she's like quite up and down with her emotions.
Yeah.
So I wrote it one way, but I didn't know how she was going to interpret it. And the way she interprets it, and from the pitch deck to how it is in the webtoon, is just stuff that I was just never going to think of that if she wasn't the one doing the pencils.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your interns have ideas too. The only reason why they're juniors is just because they're new to the industry and they don't have experience, but that doesn't mean they don't have ideas. Anyway.
I think what's also great, especially just like touching on that with the interns' ideas, haven't been jaded by the industry just yet.
Yes.
So they've got really fresh, fun ideas that you wouldn't have thought of, because the first thing that pops into your head is cost and oh my god, all of that nonsense.
Yes. Oh, this is going to take too long. Like when a client shows up and says, "Can you do this for us in 2 weeks?" Immediately I'm like, okay, I can't do this. I can't do this. We're not doing compositing. We're no lighting. Okay, Kabelo, you can't do the composite because you're gonna polish it too much. This artist has to do it because it'll be quick. Like I'm thinking about that stuff. Whereas our animators like, meh, I would like to try this idea, and then they just go for it. So yeah. I agree.
Great. So real quick, so I am going to hop off in 8 minutes to switch to the laptop. Before we go, so I also wanted to ask, for those who are wanting to get into making their own studio, taking a similar road that you did, are there any things you would caution against, or any like really hard lessons that you had to like struggle through and learn from, just so people have some sort of awareness of what they're getting themselves into?
That is a good question. What would I caution against, or some hard lessons I've learned? So I think for the first time in my life, I understand when people say time is money. So it used to irritate me, because for me, I'm like, I work until I'm finished. So I don't understand when you say I'm taking too long to work on something and it's a waste of time. I don't understand what you mean. But last year, we had like a huge change in staff. So we were 10 in 2021, and then we were 8 in 2022. And then a lot of them left, and we were just 4 at the end of last year. Now we're 6. And I remember when I was working with some of the artists who were with us then, sometimes when they were delivering work, because we have weekly deliverables and we have feedback meetings at least twice a week, but of late we've been doing them every day because of how much work we just have to get through. And I remember there would be times where I'd be reviewing work, and the work was just like So I like to describe work as either being effective or ineffective, or weak or strong. So I don't really say good or bad, because what's that? That's relative.
Yeah.
And so it was like really weak line work, or just like not executing something on time, even though I know I've been working with this person for 2 years now. I know their pace, so I know how fast they can work. And it was just really poor delivery, and I was just trying so hard to make it work with this person's really poor line work, for example. And I was finding that I couldn't trust this artist to work on our client stuff, because they were going to just deliver really weak work. And so I would have to give them like almost like filler projects for our social media, so that I could just train them to get better, and it was just not working. And then eventually we had some cash flow problems, and so I had to take out loans to make sure that the business stays afloat. I can pay salaries. So that's also just the reality of it. Sometimes the clients don't come in as quickly. Sometimes the short films don't sell as much as you think, and so you have to take out a loan. So just be aware of that. That's sometimes a reality you'll have to face. And I remember I took out a loan just so I could make sure that I can pay our staff, and I wasn't earning a salary at that time. I was just making sure, pay my staff, make sure I have Wi-Fi, make sure I have email and electricity, to be alive. And I'll figure out my income later. And then these people just left. They left the studio, and it was heartbreaking. Not just because you're sad because people are leaving, but because I was trying so hard to get these people to grow, and they just weren't like growing. And I realized that every time we would send an animation back, redo this shot, redo this thing, I'm wasting money, because I am paying this person to execute, and every day the work that they do is billable. And so I'm just like, when a client comes to me and says, Kabelo, I need this thing, and I need this kind of project, and I need it at this day, they are paying me, and so they have to get their money's worth when they pay me. Same with our team. We, as the studio, as the Cabblow Studios as an entity, has to get its money's worth when it pays the artists to do their work. And so when this person has to constantly revise something, when they have to do filler projects that go on social media rather than projects that can go to festivals, or projects that we can use to turn into a short film that we sell, I'm wasting money. I'm wasting months and months of money. I didn't understand that concept until these people left, and I realized, oh my goodness, I'm wasting money. So anyway, so that's the one thing, is realizing that when people say time is money, that's what it means. It means the work that you're doing, it's the hours that you're working, and the skill that you have is billable. And so make sure that the outcome is worth what is being paid, and that's whether you're an employee or a freelancer. Don't waste money in that way. Something else I guess I would caution against, or maybe I'd say advise you to have, or unless we're going to get to that question, but you have to really be resolved about your commitment to animation and the animation industry. And that's both as an artist and as a studio owner, because you will find yourself in situations where people will ask you, why should this project be animated and not live action? Like, at some point, we were talking to some people who were suggesting that Rory Sang should be live action. I was horrified in my spirit, because I'm like, I'm not trying to make Hannah Montana, guys. Come on. I have Rory Sang is, you guys know Hatsune Miku, the oldest of vocaloids and like virtual performers. That's where I'm going with Rory Sang. She's her own person. She's her own character. And she needs to live and exist beyond myself, like Hello Kitty, for example. So you will find that people will try to lead you in a direction that you don't want to go, because they don't have the vision. You have it. And so I would say you really have to be resolved in your heart, in your mind, about your commitment to animation, both as a business owner, because there will be tough times, like I just said now, to take out a loan to pay people. There'll be people who will say, do live action when you know very well you're trying to do an animation. But then also animation itself can just be hard sometimes to make. Like, somebody's giving Rory Sang Miku hair. You guys are great. Yes. So, what was I saying? Yes. So animation itself, like, it takes 24 drawings to make 1 second of animation. You need perseverance to be able to do that over and over again. So I would say really, and the only way you can know that you're resolved about your commitment to animation is when you face those challenges that make you want to quit. And when you find that you are persevering through it, then you know you're committed to it. But until then, it's hard to know that you're truly committed to it.
Yeah. Going off of that point then, because a lot of people get into this industry because they're in love with art and love, creating. How much has your role changed in terms of how involved you are with the art process?
My gosh, that is such a good question because it's like an internal dilemma. I don't want to be a person in an office signing contracts, guys. But I am. So my role has evolved. Before, when it was just me and one intern, or just me and my mom, I was the only animator, storyboard artist, character designer, etc. But as the team has grown, I've filled in roles where it's things where that artist has a greater strength than me in that area. And so it makes more sense for them to carry that role. For example, our employee who's been with us the longest, Tanika, she does backgrounds and she does coloring. So I don't touch backgrounds anymore at all. She does all of them and she does them so quickly. Oh my gosh. She does them so quickly. Whereas other skills that our team members don't have, for example, compositing. I still do compositing. So all of the lighting effects that you see in our animations or in our illustrations, that's me. I'm doing the shadows and lighting and like almost like color grading, like live action when they do color grading. I'm doing that. And because I did actually study sound design and editing, I'm also the editor for the team. So I will edit all of our videos, both our behind the scenes videos, tutorials, animations themselves, the films themselves. I'm the editor, and I also do sound design. So, like I'll be. I don't know if you guys saw that Rory Sang animation we did for the Animate CT challenge. So it'll be me in all by my lonesome, like doing effects by myself or sourcing effects online because I like to use royalty free, or I use Artlist. Now I've been using Artlist for sound design. So it'll be me like making the sound of things, like making the wind for our project. It's so funny. So I do that creatively. And then because I host the Business of Animation podcast, then I also edit that and write for that and then draw the cover art so that I keep sane, since I really love to draw, but I'm doing less and less drawing because the team is faster. If I have to draw everything, the pipeline just gets clogged and we slow down. So the rest of the team handles storyboarding, animation, character design. They do the pencils when we do comics. What else do they do? They everything that I was doing on my own, like I was storyboarding before, I was animating before. I don't do that anymore. I do when the project calls for it. Like sometimes it's just something that it makes more sense if I'm directing that project to storyboard aspects of it. And if we're animating, like some of the Rory Sang animations that are coming, I will do the keyframes if there's really something that I've imagined that I would like to animate, or if I'm just being selfish and I want to be an artist, that happens. But for the most part, it's them. They do everything, and I do other stuff like writing quotations and creating pitch decks. I have so many PowerPoints on my computer, and writing invoices. That's me. Emails. I'll be the ones approaching people saying, pitching them to sponsor episodes of the podcast. That's me doing that. And attending meetings and doing this kind of publicity stuff as well, interviews as well. And then Dr. T does more of the heavy lifting with admin. So she'll deal with the accountant. And I'm so glad I don't have to deal with them directly. I just have to read and understand the information, but I don't have to like file the documents. Oh my gosh. So she does that, or if we're applying for funding, she does all those applications. Or if somebody asks us for a business plan, we will talk through it. She will put it together and I will make it pretty in a PowerPoint. So in that way, yeah. So I'm still a graphic designer, I guess. I'm still a compositor, and I'm still an illustrator, and I'm only an animator when I have to be. So it's I've decided that I just want to always be in tune with the art, otherwise I'm going to become rusty. But it is like it's a personal dilemma all the time, because I don't want to be a person just signing contracts, but I don't know, maybe that's what might happen if we get that big. So we'll see.
I remember you in the days of every day drawing on the How train, coming back from doing the classes and stuff. Do you still at least treat yourself to that sort of thing?
That's why I do the podcast cover art, Jeannie, because otherwise I won't do any art, guys. Or that's why I forced to do the shadows and lighting of Rory Sang and the Girls, even if it means I have to upload 2 episodes a month instead of 4 or 3 a month, because I just don't draw for fun anymore. Sometimes I do in my sketchbook, or I do some like I have a fan art series that I'm doing where I just draw my favorite Cinderella characters, but that's like in December when nobody wants anything from me. Then I can do that. But otherwise I it's weird, like I don't draw for fun anymore, which is a bit sad. I have a sketchbook, but it just has like Rory Sang thumbnails. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The studio, a question from when how the caution against the studio and the advice you had for someone starting a studio. A quick also that came here. How do you get to a point where you can afford to hire people full time?
Good question. That's a really good question. When you can see that you've got consistent income and you can project the income that's coming. So we've had seasons where we've had extended periods of income, and so we knew we could take care of our team for that year or for that 6 months. But otherwise, it's really hard to know that you can hire people full time if you don't know where your income is coming from and if it's not consistent. And for us, income is coming from a lot of different places. It's coming from the clients who come and say, please make an animation for us. And so we charge them for that animation. It's coming from royalties. So we sell our short films on different platforms overseas. There's people selling DVDs of our short films. It's wild overseas. And so we get the royalties every 3 months. Yeah, every quarter. Every 3 months we get some royalties. It's not the biggest royalties in the world, but it's consistent. The other stuff that's been bringing in income is we do children's book illustrations, so those are also clients as well. We've been selling the last book that we illustrated for Penguin Random House, Amara Goes to the Olympics. We sell that, and then we do events. So I will go to schools and draw, or I'll go to universities and guest lecture, or I will write university courses. And then the one that's really starting to pick up, which is exciting, is we have started to get some sponsors for the podcast. So our last sponsor was TV Paint, and now we're going to do some stuff with Oakfields College as well. So that's the one way when you know you've got a consistent income that you can then sustain the studio with. And then also like something that we've now been working towards is now we have to look at investors, which is something I've been avoiding for the longest time because I hate the idea of owing people. But in order for us to scale up, which is what the business people say, in order for us to grow bigger so we can have hundreds of employees, we have to have people invest into the studio. So they will give us the money to grow the studio to do certain projects. And then as those projects make profit, we pay back those investors. We pay shareholders their dividends. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm using such language. And then, so that's something we've been looking at as well, investors. And then we are in South Africa, so we've got some really cool benefits that other African countries don't yet have. So sometimes there will be like programs where people will supplement the income of your interns. And so you don't have to pay your interns. That particular sponsor or funding body is going to pay those interns. And so they're working for you at no cost to you because the funds are coming from somewhere else. So sometimes we also do that. So like Animation SA had a COVID-19 relief program. And so we joined them so that we could get some interns to come and work with us. And then they get their income through Animation SA funding. So they will pay us and then we pay the interns. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Also, other funding comes from like the National Film and Video Foundation, Gauteng Film Commission, KZN Film Commission. When you apply to those programs and then you win some grant funding, then you've got a lump sum of money that's dedicated to that project. Then you know you can hire people for the duration of that project. Yes.
There's so many like balls to keep rolling there. One thing I've always been curious about is like, so a lot of people want to get into directing or studio ownership. And, you know, paperwork's one thing. Keeping these like, you know, people in the loop is another thing. But I think something that's not often spoken about and is actually really important is the soft skills. Like, how do you manage to do all of this? What are the tools you personally use? What is your approach? And like, what is a general day for you like?
Wow, you make it sound like I'm one of those wake up at 4 a.m. CEOs.
I mean, you're doing a lot, so there must be something going on. I mean, I could do very little in that time as well.
So I'm not one of those wake up at 4 a.m. CEOs, although because of load shedding, I work when there's electricity. So I guess I've been one of them because I live in South Africa. But I guess one of the things that's very important for us as a studio just to keep us grounded is prayer. So that might be weird, but I am Christian. So we actually pray together as a team every Monday. And somehow it just keeps us grounded and as a team. And so something that I keep is a notebook. So I take old-fashioned notes, even though I love the computer. But I keep a notebook, and every week I don't do bullet journaling because that's just stressful. I don't know, the people who do bullet journaling, I don't know, you tell me the appeal. But I keep a notebook every week. I use a double page spread, and it's like an A5 notebook. It's small. I use a double page spread in my notebook, and I write on the top left every Monday. I do this every Monday. I write this week, and then I just like write everything that needs to get done. And some things I get through, and other things I don't. And in the week, some of the things that I need to get done is it's always emails. So it'll be either client emails or emails to approach people for sponsorship, or emails where other people have inquired of us of a project, so I've got to do quotations and stuff to tell them the cost of the project. So it's emails. Every week there's emails. The most important thing, I have to always make sure that every team member knows what they have to achieve every week. So I always write the name of the team member and the work that is assigned to them that they have to do. And every team member has their own little abbreviation, so I know who's who. And then I have to make some kind of progress on our studio originals. And one of our studio originals is Rory Sang and the Girls. And another one is always some kind of medical project. And so I have to make sure there's a progress on that every week. So with Rory Sang, I do the shadows and lighting, and I also do lettering, and I also upload it to Webtoon. And so every week, some level of that needs to happen. And then I have so on the left is like my emails and what the team has to do and the studio originals. And then on the right is like clients, social media, podcasts, who has to get paid, who owes me an invoice, and who am I quoting this week. And then I have a little corner for personal, which always gets neglected. But I think I did one thing in my personal stuff this week. But yeah, every week I have to always do emails. I have to always make sure the team has work that they do and that they achieve it by Friday. I have to make progress on a studio original. Clients must have updates. We update our clients every week. Every week they get an update. Social media, one of them has to be updated. Sometimes they get neglected. This month, Facebook has been neglected. But social media, I have to post at least 3 times in the week. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. YouTube has been neglected. Come again?
Are there like tools that you use to like simplify this or make things a little easier for yourself?
I'm very chaotic, guys. It sounds like I'm orderly, but I'm not. I'm very chaotic. Every time I try to use these like Monday.com pre-make posts, it doesn't work. Every time I try to use it doesn't work. And so writing it down in my book, then seeing there that it says, oh, post Cape Town animation today, then I'm like, okay, you see it now, do it now. So that's how it works. So I would love to be one of those people who uses like organizational tools, but I don't know, I never kept a diary in school. I always used to flop after the first term. I just So one thing I do use with the team is spreadsheets. So I do use spreadsheets with the team where we keep track of all the shots that have to get done, who's doing backgrounds, who's doing animation, what's been approved, what is still in progress. That I do. I use Google Sheets. So I use spreadsheets for managing productions. But for managing myself, I just use a chaotic diary. And then I just tick off what is done. And then what doesn't get done gets sent to next week. Or I realize it's not a priority. Or I realize I've been hoarding work and I need to give it to one of our team members who would have finished it a week ago if I had just given it to them in the first place. Every time. And it's usually creative stuff I let go of. Because they can't do invoices and they can't do the meetings. And they can't do the social media posts. I have to do that. But they can come up with storyboards and they can do coloring and they can do character design. And me as a director, I have to just get really good at describing and leading people towards the vision.
So you probably have to find them that you have to really become a people's person. Or would you say you already were a people's person?
I think if you work in a team, you have to not find people disgusting. Like you have to actually be happy to deal with people. And so I'd say, I guess I am a people's person in some way. I feel like I'm an extroverted introvert. And if I wasn't a people's person, this forced me to be. Dealing with clients and having team members forces me to be better at working with people and better at communicating whatever it is that we're trying to make. Yeah, that person is drawing a notebook with a bunch of tabs inside. That's how my notebook looks. I have piles of these A5 notebooks.
Sorry.
I have piles of them, guys. One day I should take a photo and put them on Instagram and be like, this was my year. Thank you very much. Good night. That sausage dog is so cute. Who's drawing that?
I did him. He's a little sausage.
That is so cute.
Dan, you answered so many of the questions that I had here.
Oh,
as you just go along naturally. That's good. So we do have one really, really important one.
yes.
That is pineapple on pizza. What's your thoughts?
Never. That is terrorism. Never. And you can drag me on the internet. It's fine. That is terrorism. Why? Pineapple on pizza. Why? No. Who put this yellow? Who is terrorizing us here? Pineapple
Someone
on
needs to control Z a few times.
Pineapple on pizza is wrong. So wrong. I understand it's sweet and sour contrast. No. Moist fruit. No.
Moist full fruit.
Warm fruit.
Is it warm?
That's the thing. It's like apple pie. It's warm fruit. Why?
Okay, but cold apple pie with some cream is at least.
Yes, that is decent because it's not warm. It's still soggy, but it's not warm. But pineapple, no. Pineapple with savory things, I understand. Like cold pineapple with savory things, I understand it. Like sometimes people put a slice of pineapple on burgers. I understand what you're trying to do. It's just when it's on pizza, it's like soggy, which doesn't make sense to me. So no pineapple on pizza.
Okay, so guys, we actually have only about 7 minutes left. I'm not sure who wants to sit on and draw and continue drawing. I'm going to draw for a bit longer, even when the session ends. But please, I really do encourage, if you guys have any questions that you'd like to point at Kabelo, really now is the time, especially if you are someone looking to do studio stuff yourself, like really just fire away.
There is one question that came through recently from Oak Chris. It says, I also have a question. It was cool that you could start with your niche market in medical animation. How would you recommend going about finding a niche for a studio?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. How would you recommend going about finding a niche? I suppose niche comes from your unique interests and the things that irritate you about the world that you want to fix and change. And so for us, medical animation came because, yes, my mom was supposed to be like Kris Jenner. She was going to be like a momager, but then she realized her patients weren't quite understanding her role as an anesthetist. And so she was like, wait, what if we used animation to explain this thing? And so animation became something that could solve a specific problem. And that's why we went into medical animation as the niche. So we're not just doing like ads, we're communicating important health information in a way that it's not boring or intimidating. And so then that's Dr. T's interest that then created that niche of medical animation. But I would say a character like Rory Sang, my interest is coming of age stories. I love stories of characters who just like grow up and like realize something about themselves. And we know that we don't have enough stories, diverse stories out there, and we certainly don't have enough from this continent out there. And so I saw that there are not enough Black female characters who have this kind of experience, and I really love like coming of age, growing up, figuring out who you are, learning to believe in yourself type of stories, because that's just the story of my life, learning to believe in myself. And so then a character like Rory Sang then comes from that place. So I think finding your niche is about looking at what are your specific interests and what are the problems that you can solve with your artistic abilities and skills. I hope that helps.
Thank you for that. And then another question from Solar Tree. As somebody who doesn't work in a studio and never has before, what attitude should I cultivate to prepare myself mentally for the workload and the social aspects and so on?
Wow, what attitude should you cultivate? These are good questions as they make me think. What attitude should you cultivate? That's a good question. I would say, like, one thing I've realized is you have to start to remove yourself a little bit from the art. And what I mean by that is like how personal it can be when you get feedback, and how precious a drawing can be that you don't want to delete it, erase it. I think not becoming too. I think when you're getting into a studio environment, one of the things is to learn to become less precious about the artwork that you're doing, because when you're in a studio environment, everybody's working towards the specific vision and goal of that project. And so, for example, like the character designs for Rorisang, I didn't do them. We have a character designer who did them. And so all of us have to learn how to draw in that person's style to be consistent. And so when you get feedback that like our art style is like quite round and smooshy and cute. So if you've got like quite sharp lines, and you
all
get
the lip sync shots except for the one at the window and the one with the guy on the bike, 10-year-old one.
What is happening?
Sizer, would you please mute yourself?
I think someone's multitasking and working.
Okay.
Yeah.
So saying when you get feedback like that, when you get feedback where you've got to adjust your artwork towards whatever is being asked of you, it's to then remove yourself from it. Ooh, are you not able to mute this person? Is to then remove yourself from that, not be too precious about it, and realize that we're just working towards this specific goal of this project. It's not about trashing your art.
Shots.
Yeah.
Sorry, Stizer, would you please mute yourself?
I have
The one with the
muted him,
scripted and the one on the rail.
Huh. Okay.
And
there we go.
And
Yeah, there we go.
And then the other thing I think as well, the kind of attitude that you should have is treating your fellow teammates like neighbors. So when I tell my teammates to label their files and their layers properly, I'm like, labeling your files and your layers properly is not about you. You're thinking about your neighbor and your future self. So when you're coming into the industry, you might not know exactly how you'll fit into someone's pipeline, and that's fine. That particular studio will tell you where you fit in their particular process. But when you're working with them and you know you're the you are the colorist, for example, and so you have to receive cleaned up animation from someone, color it in, and then pass it on to the compositor. When you're labeling your files, when you're saving them, when you're labeling your layers inside your files, and the amount of layers that you have, how you organize your work in there, you're not just thinking about you and yourself, that you have layer Untitled 56. It's fine if you're working by yourself, you can have Untitled 56. But when I open it and I'm compositing and I don't know where the characters are, I don't know where the backgrounds are, I don't know what's on top of who, that person didn't think of me, their neighbor, when they were doing their work. And so when you're thinking about being in a studio environment, remember the person who is before you in the pipeline and after you, because they have to give you the work in a certain way such that you can be effective when you work. And when you pass it on to the next person, you also have to give it in a way such that it makes sense for the next person to work. That's what it means to remember your neighbor and your future self, because your future self will be crying when there's Untitled 58 and you don't know what this layer is, and you're crying and you can't figure it out and you have to start again. So
yeah, I can understand that. There's 2 more questions that have come in. Jeannie, do you think we should cap it, or do you want to open for one last question after the second question has been answered?
I think, Kabelo, how are you feeling?
I'm okay to keep talking just maybe 5-10 more minutes. I'm okay.
Okay, so then, sorry, Jeannie?
No, I was just saying thank you because it's really considering how busy you are. So thank you.
Okay, so we'll take these two questions that have come in the chat, and then we'll cut off the questions after the second one's been answered. The first question is from Blackguard. Oh, sorry, Kabelo. Thank you for answering the question that you just answered. It's a great answer. I enjoyed that answer as well.
Thank you.
The first question is, did you brand your work to attract certain clients, or did clients come by as a product of you doing the work you already love?
Clients came as a product of doing the work that I already love, or rather the work that I was good at that time when they came. So I remember when I first started trying to do medical animation, my previous employer, which I guess was my last employer because I haven't been a studio person since then, that person was like, no, nobody wants stylized stuff. That person used to do animations for insurance companies, so like medical aids. And so he was like, no, nobody wants stylized stuff. And I remember I had to leave the meeting, go to the bathroom and cry because I was like, oh my gosh, am I like irrelevant and obsolete? Nobody wants the art style that I do. He was saying, people are more in favor of like the lineless style, that is often used in like explainers and in marketing. The kind of corporate style that you see.
Boring.
And so what happened then after that is we actually found our first client. It was a pharmaceutical company. They make an allergy spray called Dazit nasal film. And at the time, I had the art style that I had. And because we went around pitching to a lot of different medical companies, telling them that we can do this thing for them. I used to pitch in my lunch breaks. I used to be a full-time lecturer. Sorry, digress. I used to be a full-time lecturer, and in my lunch breaks, we'd go pitch somewhere, and then I come back and then go teach. And so that company, Sun Pharma, they liked the style that I had because it was cute. It was kind of realistic, but not too realistic. And it was different from the corporate stuff that everyone was doing. And then they really liked our style. And then when we made our short film, 3 Teaspoons of Sugar, and it went to all these film festivals and all of that, all of a sudden these other pharmaceutical clients and a clinic, I think, they were like, yes, also me, I want this. And it was because it was our style and our competencies at the time. Since then, we have done some stuff that breaks out of that style because now we have the ability to do other art styles. We can do that corporate style that Jeannie was saying is boring. We can do that. We've done some stuff that looks like collage. We've done some stuff that looks like paper cutout, and we've done some stuff that's like hybrid, where the backgrounds have got like real world textures like gumball or like fish hooks, and then the characters are our usual style. But for me, my experience has been that people have worked with us because of our unique style and our skills that we had at that time. And I think you can, if you want to, you can go on the journey of trying to form an art style if you want. But for me, art style is something that's so organic. It's like a fingerprint. It's going to naturally come out as you get better at doing your art. I used to draw mad anime. I don't draw anime at all. I just draw like however I draw. But if you look at it, you can tell there's an anime influence there. You don't know what it is anymore. So for me, art style is like a fingerprint. You already have it. It's just as you improve, you start to discover what it is, and you have better language to describe it, and you might find that you can execute more than one style as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. And then the last question of the evening is from a student, Red Heart Diamond. I'm a college student who will hopefully enter the animation industry next year. How do you overcome doubts about your own skill level and potentially not being good for studios?
Oh, that's a good one, because I know that feeling. Because I felt like that when I was in fourth year. Literally, my thesis paper was interrogating whether the program I just finished prepared me well enough for the industry, and my thesis, and I'm gonna be hopeful after this, but my thesis was that no, it didn't. The program I attended did not prepare me well enough for the industry, and that's fine because it's a reality that I could then acknowledge and then work towards overcoming. But how do you overcome the self-doubt about your skill and maybe not feeling good enough for the industry? I think, how did I overcome it? I think if you find yourself in a situation where like no one is hiring you, it is good to kind of assess and see why. Like really look at your portfolio and like see where are my strengths and where are my weaknesses in this portfolio. My strength personally has always been line art. Even though I'm terrible at drawing cars, but lines are my strength, and people. Really looking at the strengths of your portfolio, and maybe sometimes it's hard to see where your portfolio is weak. So if you can get a review from a platform like this, the digital art community, or if you are able to go to the Cape Town Animation Festival, you get your portfolio reviewed. Those people will be able to tell you what is and isn't working about your work, so that you know where to improve. That's the first thing, is like really look and see, okay, where is there actually weakness? Where can I be real with myself? My weakness was backgrounds and perspective, completely weak. Now it's better because storyboarding forces me to do backgrounds. That's the one thing. And then the other thing about doubt and not feeling confident is it's actually fine if you don't feel like you're good enough yet, because as you work on a project, whether it's a personal project or a challenge that you see on Instagram like Inktober or something else, you gain confidence from finishing that work. So I never used to think I could finish anything. And then I finally finished Inktober for the first time in 2017. And I was like, ho, I am a person who can finish an art challenge. And so as you finish one project and another, that confidence grows. So it's fine. You don't have to feel like, I have to have the greatest self-belief in the world at the beginning. You don't. It's okay. It's okay to acknowledge that I'm not where I want to be, but I know where I'm going. And as you slowly finish one project after another, I'm telling you, the confidence will grow. Take it from me, because I used to really not think I was anything. Your confidence will grow as you repeat the repetition, as you repeat and complete and repeat and complete and fail and learn from failure. The confidence will grow. But I think really like actually take a good look at your portfolio and really be honest about, okay, these are the things I know I'm good at. These are the things that I'm not so good at. Because then you'll also apply for jobs where the jobs are towards your strengths, Yeah.
No, thank you for that. If I can just add to that as well, I think also it's really important to remember creatives generally have this fear, and it is entirely very common that every space you go to in animation, everyone has that same feeling. So if you just remember everyone else is an imposter while you're at it, it does help a little bit. But what Kabelo says is very, very true. You have to fail to grow, and the only way you fail is if you try. So you have to keep trying. It's really important for that. On the note of portfolio reviews, we will be doing some in July. There will be an event for that. And stay tuned. There will be interesting animation challenges coming up this year as well. Just busy chatting to some people about getting something fun set up. But anyway, Kabelo, we're not going to take too much of your time. thank you so much for coming
This is
through on a
fun.
Friday night amidst load shedding and what I'm sure is a very busy schedule, in the middle of pitch season. Thank you so much for taking the time to just chat to everyone and, give you insights. It's been amazing to just hear from you and your journey.
Thank you for having me. I could not multitask. I thought I was going to be able to draw and talk. I couldn't. But thank you all for having me. I'm now in the Discord. Please excuse me if I make mistakes. I'm a noob. But if you ever need to ask me any kind of questions or anything, you can always send me a message on Instagram and I'll definitely reply. And I'm just Cabblow. Everywhere on the internet, you'll find me. It's Cabblow. Yeah.
If you guys do want to learn more about Kabelo and, all the socials, if you go to the events channel, there is a thread under the events announcement that has all of her information over there. You can see her team, the company, her profile, everything is there. So do go and check it out. Neil, anything else you'd like to add?
No, there's nothing from my side. You did answer all of the questions we had. I do have a joke one for you if you're keen, but if you could get rid of any display out there, which would it be and why CRT monitors?
I did Google this. I was like, what is a CRT monitor? Those box ones.
It's those big box ones.
Actually, I wouldn't get rid of those box ones in terms of the look of it. I like retro stuff, but obviously the technology of it definitely. I'm remembering, in Windows when you have an error and then all the error boxes overlap over each other. I'm just remembering. Why would I get rid of CRT monitors? They're too small. I like big screens. That's why.
Yeah, I would
Yeah. No, that's all from my side. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Jeannie, for setting up this chat and running with it on this evening. It was a really cool chat, and listening to you guys chat and all the advice that you dropped is like just wisdom nuggets.
Oh, thank you so much. I love seeing this fan art. Oh my gosh. Anyway, thank you guys.
I'll be sure to send it to you.
Yes, please do. Have a really good weekend, everyone.
Yeah, keep well.
Same for you. Keep well.
Bye.
Bye.